Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast of Intelligent Future. In this episode, I chatted with Dr. Munder Aldwairi, who is a professor of cybersecurity at Zayed University. We chatted about the topic of fake news. Dr. Aldwairi breaks down the mechanics behind the spread of fake news, its implications, and how AI technologies plays a dual role in spreading, but also combating misinformation. In this chat, Dr. Aldwairi shed light on innovation methods to detect and mitigate fake news. This episode is very essential for people who are interested in understanding fake news, digital misinformation, and how technologies, and also, or in particular, AI, can help in shaping our perception of the truth in this digital age. So, without further ado, I leave you with the podcast.
Thank you, Muhammad, for this opportunity, and hopefully it will be useful for our listeners. So, my original work, or I was always interested in security. I started with computer architecture. I was building special purpose computers for security functions, whether security and networking, whether that's IP forwarding or whether that's intrusion detection. At the core of intrusion detection, we have pattern matching, which is finding patterns. And I find that later on in my career, I found it to be extremely useful because I was able to always look and find patterns. And fake news at the end of the day is finding certain patterns. And I remember early on when I was doing my undergrad degree, the internet was just seeping through to the Middle East, was new in the early 1990s. And I always look to us, the professors, to be the persons who disseminate, let's say, accurate scientific information. So I look at them as the ones holding the banner of truth, of real news or real information. And I had, without naming the name, one of my respected colleagues who just came from, or respected professors at that time, now he's my colleague, who just came from Canada. And in 1997, I believe, or 1998, if my memory serves me well, sends an email. I'm gonna rephrase.
Sure.
If you click this link or if you do this action, you will get like a Nokia phone. And at that time, Nokia
wow.
and their phones, like,
Sure.
cell phones penetration in 1998.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like getting in the goggles for
Exactly.
the Apple today. So that's the most prized tech gadget at that time. So immediately, like my brain went, okay, this is no way this is true. Like, okay. So
It's so good.
this
It's too good
process.
to be true.
Exactly. So this process was early on before, people talk about fake news and people talk about all of this misinformation and disinformation. So what I did is immediately I went to Nokia website. And at that time, even websites of companies like Nokia were not that professional. Like they had a banner. Now I think you are a web designer. If somebody puts a flashing banner, that's like a
Sure.
bad design taste on their website.
Exactly.
They are like, please do not click that link. Our servers are, under heavy traffic. And it was just a form of denial of service attack. So I emailed my professor and I told him, can you please like check or double check or fact check, now we have the term, things before you send them. You are a professor. And he was upset with me for a long time. I was a student. And I continued to do this for a long time with my colleagues until people got bored with me. Like, what is this guy? Is like the news police or something? And I stopped correcting people. And I think that had to do with the next point. When did social media or other networks contribute to the spread of fake news?
Wow, what an amazing start to our conversation today. And it's really interesting how you got interested in fake news as a topic. Now, fake news is all around us. And in certain periods, I think we see more fake news than other periods. So for instance, at the times of COVID-19, we saw some headlines such as 5G technology causes COVID-19, or Bill Gates planned to use COVID-19 vaccines to implant microchips in the population for tracking purposes, or COVID-19 vaccines alter DNA. Sometimes fake news are about celebrities, like rest in peace, Morgan Freeman. So all these are examples of fake news that we see. And as I said, in certain times, we see more of it than other times. But let's start with the basics first. What is fake news and how common is it?
Fake news is fake news. Despite what we are going to talk about in a few minutes, I think the term should be self-explanatory. Fake news is a piece of information that is not correct, that poses too close to correct information or believable information. We can categorize it into too many categories and go into the language and psychology. But I would say, like they say, fake news is as old as printed press. I would even say even probably older than that. I would add rumors and hoaxes and these verbal stories that we used to receive when we were kids. Those are familiar with the Arabic culture, قصص الغولة, right? The stories of the
Yeah,
غولة or something.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
it does fall under some sort of certain tales to convince a child or convince an adult to follow a certain belief. And it has been used for a long time. Now, the term has developed big time recently. And we do have two types. We have, the misinformation and we have the disinformation. So misinformation is, jokes, satire, things that we actually, political shows. Jimmy Kimmel just killed using a fake video a couple of his friend reporters, and people sometimes believe these videos. So not only we have text, now we have the videos as part of that, and then we have the disinformation. That's where we get into a more dangerous territory.
Sure.
And that's where people are collecting data and then creating stories that look like real stories to serve certain purpose. That purpose could be political, could be ideological, like we saw in the COVID, like we saw in the elections, like we saw in Brexit. And some of that disinformation can be extremely dangerous. It can affect election outcomes. It can cause people to torch 5G towers and then cause people not take the vaccine and affect probably the course of us fighting a very serious pandemic. So I think we kind of explained what fake news is, and then recently it gained a lot of traction. And this leads us probably to the next point to discuss.
100%. How common is it, and why is it a big concern now, or is it not? I mean, has it always been a concern? As you said, fake news started a long time ago. I mean, since humanity, but now, is it a bigger problem? Is it controllable? Not controllable? Yeah. What's
Well,
your
since DJ Trump invented fake news or reinvented fake, let me put it that way. He keeps,
yeah,
claiming it is.
rebranded it. Yeah.
Yeah, he rebranded the fake news and he made it his. And actually, he benefited a lot from fake news. Nonetheless, so I think it's a little bit before the time of Donald Trump. I think it has to do with social media platforms or social media networks. They provided the platform for you and I. We were just talking before our program about the fun that I had to train people to become reporters, like regular people in the streets. And this is what social media actually enabled everybody with a phone and a camera to become a news reporter. And then the New York Times and Washington Post and Associated Press and Reuters and all these respected news organizations that does some investigative journalism, and they spend months and sometimes a year to come up with a really credible story that costs a lot of money and work. They're being replaced by average Joe or a teenager or a Gen X today with a camera, just off on the fly, taking a picture of something and providing his commentary, which could or could not be true. And this was the result of social media. Now, why is that? Mostly, I blame the social media. I think when we were kids, we used to get those like pamphlets and brochures spreading certain false news, like Sheikh Ahmed of the Al Madina or Al Haram is saying such and such and such. So this is to give that talk religious authority or clergy behind it. And this was there. And as I said, it's older than the printed press. Then came up with the radio and TV. I think it also spread a little bit more, but I think the changing our point pretty much is the widespread of social media.
Wonderful. So social media is used as a medium in order to propagate and spread as you said, fake news and lies, but it can also be used to spread the truth. But there is a saying that a lie can travel half a way around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. How true is that? I mean, again, we know that social media, because it has functionalities of people sharing things. But why there is the perception that lies travel much faster than the truth? I mean, is there
Well,
like susceptibility, like as humans, we have certain tendencies to believe lies, or what's going on there?
Well, let's backtrack a little bit, and then we'll come back to social media. Let's go back to the history of, when fake news started to spread faster,
Mhm,
mostly advent of the internet.
mhm,
The biggest inflection point probably was the social media. At the core of it is how the internet works. The internet economy is based on advertisements,
mhm,
and advertisements are measured are what we call it, click to pay,
mhm,
right? So C2P, and that's the driver, the main driver
mhm,
of economy of the internet. We provide you free content
mhm,
on the premise that we provide within that content advertisements that is maybe clear as advertisements, or maybe
mhm.
is not clear that is
Sure.
advertisements. So it's a business model. It's
Uh-huh,
making money.
uh-huh,
And then when you click on it and view, we get paid
mhm,
because from our page, you were clicking or you were interested in that particular advertiser's program or that advertiser's product. And this
mhm,
is the whole way the internet economy works. And I think it's behind a lot of problems. If we do not modify or come up with an alternative way
mhm,
to change the economy of the internet, or how do we make money on the internet, this will continue to be a problem. So, because of that, a well known technique called clickbaiting was developed,
sure.
where we basically put a flashy title like rest in peace, JP Morgan,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and,
And then and
all
that arouses your curiosity to click
exactly.
on it, and it's mhm,
Yeah, and correct. And that we had that for a long time. We had the yellow press, and
mhm.
every country has its own form of yellow press, where it has the flashy. And
Exactly, exactly.
when you read the article, not much substance actually to substantiate what they were claiming in the title, but the title is designed to be a clickbait, to be flashy, to be
Mhm,
interesting, to be enticing, to work the human psychology, the curiosity of
mhm,
people, and they know when they did that that is wrong. But I
mhm,
think even this is getting a little bit more dangerous, because now, so everybody knows it, to a certain extent. Let's not say everybody, but a lot of people know what a clickbait is, and a
sure.
lot of people know what a flashy. But now we have advertorials.
Mhm,
So you have an editorial that is written like an editorial, but it's actually just a commercial. Okay, and you see this a lot. And again, this is how the internet economy works. This is how people who want to benefit from the internet economy are developing new terms and in new ways, like advertorials and so on and so forth.
mhm, mhm,
Now we reach to the social media. So one of the problems of social media, and again, this is for the people who work in psychology,
mhm,
is it puts people, the way the algorithms are designed,
mhm.
in silos, in bubbles, what we call them, social
Sure.
bubbles.
Mhm,
So Muhammad likes Munder's ideology.
mhm,
We agree on certain terms, and whether it's religion, whether it's political, whether it's sports, we have similar interests. And
mhm,
Muhammad has 200 friends. But
mhm,
then Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, they start filtering your feeds to show you those people you are interested in, because this capitalizes on how their system works. You're more likely to view, you're more likely to click. So now we moved from pay to click on regular websites to likes, shares, subscribes,
mhm.
sending gifts, right?
Wonderful.
You're more likely to be engaged with content that tethers your emotion, your ideology, your concepts, and you are repulsed with opposing opinions. This is part of the human nature. So now social media isolated Muhammad and Munder and all these users into their social bubbles of like-minded people. And now this exasperated the problem of fake news, because when I present you with something fake, but it agrees with the way your mind works, agrees with your ideology, agrees with your views, you're more likely to probably share it without even reading it. Okay, just you like the title, share it. Oh, it's too many things to read these days. It's just I
Yeah.
trust Munda. He's like me, and
Mhm.
and that's actually part of the problem of social media.
Wow, that's really scary. So basically, what you're saying is the algorithms that these social media outlets provide. So, for instance, the feed that I consume is personalized based on, uh, as you said, maybe my ideology or my understanding of life, and it's just confirming what I already believe in, but just showing it in different ways. So that's really very scary. So that's a confirmation bias kind of issue. But there's also some research about fake news in terms of um, us as humans being cognitively loaded all the time, especially with the new age. Like, there is so much content. Like, if you go on YouTube, if you go on Instagram, if you go on x.com, there is so much content, and we don't really have the time to think and reflect on every single post that we see. Could that also be a reason for why fake news spreads unhinged, unfiltered?
Exactly. So it's not all social media platforms, but it's all connected. You know, what you just mentioned, we are, as humans,
Mhm,
reason in a certain way. And the way that your cognitive reflection process is developed since you
mhm,
were a child
mhm,
uh, encompasses or is bigly affected, like a term by Trump again, by your upbringing, by your environment, by your ideology, by your society, by whatever factors, external factors around you that you are exposed to. And this creates your reasoning. Now, you are a professor, I am a professor. We would like to think that we have a really
Sure.
sound cognitive reflection, but we are
Mhm,
biased. You are biased by your upbringing, by your
sure.
background, by your ideology, and I am too.
Mhm,
Now,
mhm,
social media, unfortunately, are aware of that, and they employ a lot of psychologists
mhm,
rather than say, okay, we should focus on accuracy,
mhm,
but they are not. And
mhm.
their goal is not to focus on accuracy. Their goal is to generate money. Their
Yes.
goal is to generate content, and
Mhm,
we call it interaction with contents, likes,
mhm,
posts, comments,
mhm,
subscribes. This is what they want, and they exploited that bias in our reasoning
mhm,
uh, into their own advantage rather than focusing on the truth.
mhm,
And again, I don't blame them. At the end of the day, they have huge investments. They want to
mhm,
make money. And when Mark Zuckerberg and his similar social media network guys were summoned by the Congress, congressional hearings,
mhm,
and he said over and over again, we are not a news organization.
mhm.
But to the Congress or to the legislator and to the people, that's where we get our news from. When I
Yes,
did
that's
some of my
correct.
research on fake news, the majority of the new generation
Yes.
get their news from social
Generation Z or millennials.
while, yeah, that my dad and your dad's generation probably is still
No,
watching TV.
absolutely
No,
not. They're going to
nobody
read
else
the
is watching
newspaper.
TV.
They're going to read the paper. Yeah, yeah.
So, but then this is the discrepancy. To Mark Zuckerberg, he's not a news organization. He is a business that makes money, and he makes money. He
Mhm,
makes money
mhm.
by exploiting that human characteristic. I wouldn't say a weakness to his
100%.
advantage. So he wants you to be more enticed, more active, more engaged with the content, and he's using your biases against you. And they were fined. They were fined 5 billion dollars, if I recall. Part of it was paid to the European Union or to the UK, but it wasn't completely because of what we just explained, the way it works, and the economy of the social media and the economy of the internet, but also because of their failing to protect the privacy of their users. So part of their model, for example, they had Facebook applications, which is now getting old. But then if you participate in a game or an application on Facebook, what happens is that you give permission to that organization or that company that developed that application to get certain access to your profile and your friends lists or other public things about
So
your
you're
friends.
giving them your data, basically. Yeah.
So if you remember a big scandal about a company called Cambridge Analytica,
Mhm.
and Cambridge Analytica was So Cambridge Analytica was a company that was exploiting, it was collecting, so exploited the weakness in the privacy of Facebook, collected millions of data records about users, and then they exploited that to build custom-made advertisements based on what you have posted on your profile, based on your likes, based on your clicks, engagements. They have a profile for Muhammad. Muhammad is more likely to be engaged with the message designed that way. And then they helped in the Brexit. They helped the senator from Texas, I forgot his name, to be elected. And then he is the one who actually got Cambridge Analytica involved in Donald Trump's election. So going back, not only the social media and the internet structure, but it's also, other factors. And at the end of the day, it's driven by business and money because accuracy has gone through the window. Yeah.
100%. And I know this is not our topic, but I want to bring it up because it's very common these days. I mean, today, fake news is beyond just posts, that are lies, basically. It also could be video, like where there is a deep fake video technology where you can make anyone, let's say, for instance, Obama or a certain celebrity, say something that they didn't really say, and it looks real. And most people, maybe 99% of the people, wouldn't be able to tell because it's exactly the same voice, the same body language, the same everything. Is that I mean, blurring the line between the truth and disinformation? Where will this lead us, and how can we trust content in the future?
That is correct. So now we are transcending the posts, the written messages and the verbal messages into voice notes. And then later on, now we have the deep fakes where I can have your picture, I can have your voice, and I give it a transcript of text, and even your mouth movement will be. That's how the, let's say, the fact checkers do it by observing certain things, and then the skin tone. I would get your face matching that particular body, and the movement would be his, and the head would be yours, and the voice would be yours, and the lips movement will be correct. And then it will become even difficult for versed analyzers to be able to determine if that video is fake or not. And this is gonna continue to develop more and more in the future. And again, it is a danger, but it is an opportunity at the same time. Pretty much like we use AI to develop these technologies, we can use AI to detect these technologies. Where we headed, it's really, I'm not a very good guide for forecasting, but I can see that our belief of seeing is going to be affected. And if I recall correctly, even in courts now, they're questioning the eyewitness. What eyewitness was like, done deal. That's it. We have an eyewitness for the crime, Muhammad did it, done. And now, even psychologically, they are questioning the ability of single human being to be able to confirm a fact that he saw. And this takes me to another maybe off topic. In Islamic jurisprudence, we require 4 witnesses.
Correct.
So 4 eyewitnesses.
So how do we apply that now? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So and again, it is very difficult to apply. And a lot of people say this is because they don't want that particular verdict to be given, because the punishment is very harsh. Then 4 witnesses were required. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, wonderful. There are some attempts, and I'm sure you know more, you're the expert here. So there are some attempts to tackle fake news from social media, to their credit. For instance, x.com. If someone posts something controversial and it's been disputed, they will tell you that this has been disputed. This is a new thing. We see that. YouTube, for instance, if a video is posted by a specific organization that's funded by a specific country or government or something, they will tell you. So there are some researchers who are calling for treating information, being text, video, audio, as food. So for instance, in the US here as well, food has labels, and you see the nutritional values, right? How much sugar there is, how much vitamins and minerals, and so on and so forth. So could that be a solution in the future, that you build institutions that actually, you can call it fact check, or you could call it add some extra information or extra context to the materials that are being posted online?
So I agree with you. But now we are in the phase of looking for solutions. Now, the first solution that came to attention was fact checking or fact checkers. And fact checkers or blue penciling has been there for a very long time. We just talked about yellow journalism, and those are the checks and the editorial checks that remove certain texts and makes sure that only true or accurate or evidence supported statements are included in a certain article or in a certain story. But if we better call it policing, is not the most effective way. So we had an influx of fact-checking organizations. Now, I think what we mentioned, like Associated Press, Washington Post, we have Reuters, all of the big publishers of news media have their own fact-checking organizations. And we had a lot of startups and small startups here in the Middle East. I remember a couple of students from our college in Jordan University of Science and Technology established a company called Tabayanu, and they had a great success.
Nice.
But then how do these guys do the fact checking? It's
Exactly.
a manual process. They have to go and read the article. They have to go and fact check and search and do a lot of hard work before they can vet a story, whether it's correct or not. Now, what about the social media networks? What about the efforts by X? What about the efforts by Facebook? Now, the legislators in that particular hearing we were referring to, the congressional hearing, they were trying to push them, and they were resisting. They were saying, I remember Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, saying that I am not the person who decides this is true or not, or I don't want to assume that role of what can be published, what cannot be published. And again, he insisted that they are not published media, while the legislators saw it as a published media. I think their role is kind of somewhere in between. They are content providers, but at the end of the day, we can see that as publishing information. So I checked, for example, Facebook as part of my research and what they do. And I assume Elon Musk, and when he took Twitter, he's not very far in terms of using technology than Facebook. What they do is actually manual. So
Oh,
they
wow.
have their own moderators, and these moderators look at content, and they have people in all languages in all countries right now, and they're moderating content. More countries like Western, they have more moderators, and countries like Myanmar had, I don't remember the number, but it's a very small number for the whole population, and they cannot keep up with all the content. That's why you have more fake news in Myanmar than in some other, let's say, developed countries. And the other thing that they rely on is reporting, which again is not an accurate way. I can rally my people to report Muhammad because I don't like Muhammad's views.
100%.
And his page and his content would be scrutinized and flagged.
Yes.
And then we do have, even here in the Middle East, a rising belief that there is politics also behind this reporting. And there is a bias, which again goes back to what Mark said. I don't want to be the person, because now people are questioning. People are saying, okay, well, you are blocking certain content more than other content. And that is driven, again, going back, it's a human nature. He is biased because of his ideology.
We all are. Yeah.
I don't think he's the one pushing the button, but I think whoever is pushing the buttons, those moderators, are all biased by their background. So policing is not the way to go. It can contribute to limiting, like in your question and your introduction, certain content from certain well-known organizations, and promoting others from well-known organizations like the Bayano, ICAD, and all these fact checkers. But then it is not the solution that's gonna
Wonderful. But do you think like something like a reputation score, could that work? But then the question is then how you calculate the score, right? I mean, if let's say an organization has posted something that is patently fake, then and they didn't apologize, then that should reduce their score, for instance, or something like that. Should we come up with such a score, you think?
Well, so let me go back, Mohammed, to the bias and introduce Donald Trump. Donald Trump, again, because he played a big role in this.
Sure.
He attacked credible media like the New York Times, and whenever the reporter asks him a question, it is fake news, right? And we all know to a certain extent that BBC, that New York Times, and certain outlets have over the years built a certain credibility.
Sure.
But to his base, a lot of people believe that those are fake news because they're just saying things that they do not agree with their thought or ideology or bias. So having a score like that is also a two-way
It will be
sword.
disputed. It will be
And
disputed.
it will be always disputed because what you and I see based on our biasness and cognitive reflection process as fake news, others see as true news, and what we believe in is fake news. Now, is that actually correct? No, that was an exploitation of the whole fake news problem for political gain. And if I remember her name, Kellyanne Conway, when maybe in the early years when she became the Speaker of the House, and when they ask her about a lie, a blatant lie. So now we say that everything can be disputed. Not everything. There's certain things that are very clear,
Sure,
right?
sure,
So
sure.
when you say Morgan Freeman, rest in peace, he is there,
Yeah,
okay?
he's
So
there,
this can be,
exactly.
this is a fact. And she used the term that this is not a lie. Those are alternative facts. And I remember that, and I remember the journalist lashing back saying, "No, those are either facts or
Yeah,
lies.
yeah,
There's
there is
nothing
no
close
such thing as alternative facts.
to
Yeah.
facts."
If it's an opinion, sure, we can have an opinion that way or this way, but there's no alternative facts.
So this was used for political gain. And I think who develops that measure, who puts that measure, how do you, so it becomes an issue of disputing that score or disputing that measure. Yeah.
Yes, 100%, 100%. So then let's take it back to the individual. So what can the individual do? Like, all right, so every day we have our news feed, LinkedIn feed, Instagram feed, X feed, whatever we see on a daily basis, and then also people share things with us. What should the individual do? How do I know what? I mean, I don't have the time to fact check everything. Are there certain tools I can use? Are there certain techniques I can use? What do you recommend?
Okay, so solutions. One solution we talked about is policing. Whether this is going to be by governments, we have a lot of governments passing laws, criminalizing people for
Sharing, yeah.
sharing, tweeting, or even commenting on a certain content or liking a certain content. And this is happening all over the world, from the democratic all the way to the totalitarian regimes. This is one way. I think this should be used with a lot of caution. This shouldn't be the main solution. This could be like the highest level of policing. Second, policing could be by the social media platforms themselves, and they can use moderators. And maybe to the next talking point, they can use new technologies that contributed to fake news like AI. And then we have the fact checkers, the publishers, the independent fact checkers, and the publisher fact checkers. And those people, their jobs, and they should have a business model that they profit from fact checking. Now, definitely at the end of the day, when we have policing, when we have the social media platforms do their work, when we have the governments do their work, when they have the publishers do their work, the individual must do his work as well.
Exactly.
When you read a piece of information, when certain group is spreading a certain ideology, do you just immediately fall into that ideology and adopt their beliefs? Now, we are human beings. We were educated. We need to vet. We need to reason. We need to reflect on news. So I remember you and I were sharing, or you shared a very important TEDx. Education is very important on the individual level. How in this age and era do you discern and how do you vet information that you receive? So a simple Google, maybe before you forward, Google it or search for a couple of minutes. Now, if you don't have the time to do that, maybe you shouldn't be spreading something you're not sure that is true or
that's
not.
right.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
if you don't want to Google it, if you don't want to go to the fact checkers, that if you don't want to report it to a fact checker, if there was no fact check on that, maybe just hold on a little bit on your impulse to share that information. And until we reach that level of responsibility on the individual level, the problem will continue. So no matter what measures we put in place, because of the reasons we explained before, because of the economy, how the social media networks make money, how the internet and advertisers make money, this will continue to increase and exasperate. And we mentioned AI. I know probably we'll talk about this later. It can contribute to both the spread of fake news and maybe solving the problem of fake news as well.
And I think with AI, what we see is, I mean, for instance, I'm a consumer of YouTube content like many others. Sometimes in the comments section, we see a lot of comments that seem strange, like is this really written by a human? But it's difficult to judge. But sometimes you tell because that person seems to be inspired by a certain ideology, certain principle. Though, is that really common, where you see like AI bots being used in commentary sections and in? Yeah.
It is, and again, it has roots even before AI. So when we talked about again a contentious topic like the 2016 election, and if you remember, the first 2 years of the president's life was dealing with the Russia probe, and the Russia probe didn't come from a vacuum like the Republicans would like to think, but there was a lot of truth behind it, and a part of that was what we call them electronic committees in our language, or electronic flies in Arabic, ذبابة إلكترونية.
Yeah, the Babylon. Yeah.
And those are not AI bots. Today they are using AI bots, but they were actual people sitting in the basement of a building. They know what that
It could
building
be
in
actual
Moscow
thinking.
is.
Okay.
And their job was to go into discussions, political discussions between party members, between individuals, and steer or poison or steer the conversation into a certain direction. Okay. So if we are in support of Clinton or in support of Trump, they either, fan the flames or, dump some controversial point in the comments or in the conversation that can steer the whole public opinion in a different direction. And this was used very effectively in the US elections. And the way that certain organization, like WikiLeaks, for example, released the emails, or the timing of releasing the emails, and these things sounded, with a lot of, like, I've seen a lot of documentaries and investigative journalism reports about that. They were part of kind of coordinated efforts. So going back to electronic flies or electronic committees, or these agents who are sitting there and their job is to steer conversations and affect public opinion, this is a reality. And again, with the advent of AI, now we see a lot of AI comments. So, having people is very costly. This is old style. And now they're doing that, with a couple of, tech guys, and we have the generative LLMs right now.
Yes.
They probably can produce more realistic comments and more realistic discussions, and they're using that again to influence public opinion.
Okay, so basically, I mean, with the explosion of AI, as you said, and with it being heavily used in spreading fake news, I don't think we should lose hope. I think we still have hope as individuals. We have some control. As you said, we look at something, we examine it. Is it too good to be true? Who's behind this agenda? Who's posting that? So we could ask some questions, because according to some studies, it's not that the intelligence, or you have to be extremely smart to discern lies and facts. It's just that you have to be a bit more careful. So it's about carefulness, and it's about being actively engaged when you read a post. And that's I think where we can bring the control back to the actual users.
So continuing in the in the same line of discussion, so generative LLMs. So this was the biggest thing that happened in AI in the past few years, and that contributed to the increasing difficulty of detecting fake news, and it was contributing to generating more realistic fake news. And so we have ChatGPT and likes, and then we have also humanizers, and we have rephrasers. So this is something we face even in academia. And I'm thinking
exactly
this particular semester in Jordan, where I'm taking my sabbatical this year, I was here 10 years ago, and I was looking at the students' graduation projects, and like the English is a second language.
Amazing English all of a sudden.
It's very obvious. And this year I'm looking at all the reports. They're perfect. They're pristine. And they were written by a native speaker who've been writing for 20, 30 years. Not a single mistake. Very nice flow of thoughts. And I can immediately know that all these reports,
all of them use ChatGPT.
I can't have all my students at that level. Probably I can have two 10%, but not all of them. When you have all of the reports, I'm sure all of them were generated by AI. And then I was reading articles like the debate between the professors. Should we even spend the time to grade them? It's generated by AI. What's the point? So it's not even a work by the students. And then there are writings right now, like articles. Should we write? Should we continue to learn how to write? Because AI is going to write for us.
Exactly.
Well, I disagree with that. I think we're over giving it more than it's worth. I think generative LLMs and other programs will have a very long time before they can do the things we think they can do. Writing code, okay? Well, we know the experiment where they took the Linux code and they trained GLLM on it, but then and rewrote the code in a much more efficient way, much more smaller code. But I doubt, and I think, if I recall correctly, it didn't compile. It had a lot of errors. So I think we are very far from AI replacing coders, replacing writers. It can improve your writing, so writing with AI. Still, that's another problem. And then this continues to help the fake news generators make their content more automated, maybe become prolific publishers, as opposed to electronic flies who are 50 people generating a limited amount. Now they are with AI generating a lot more content. But at the same time, as it holds the problem, it also holds the key to the solution.
Yes.
And we have been doing a lot of research in this area where we can use machine learning, we can use neural networks, we can use deep learning, we can use even right now we're using semantic analysis, and we're using NLP, so we can dig a little bit deeper into the properties of language, the nature of the language, the nature of the writing, so we can detect fake news or not. But again, like I said, on overestimating the powers and the value of AI, we shouldn't also overestimate it in finding the solution. AI is still limited. So we're talking about all these general machine learning algorithms that we use for prediction of all sorts of things, and now we are limited those by a bag of features and say, okay, we're going to use those to detect fake news. But then the deciding factor, in my opinion, for the efficacy of those AI systems, it's not the data set. It's not a scraping off Twitter, 80,000 posts, or getting PolitiFact or other fact checkers posts. Those are fake. Those are real. And okay, those are the features I think that are important. Do feature selections and go through multiple machine learning algorithms and see which one detects better. And if you look at all the research, including mine, it's 99.5%. But then look at your Facebook feed. Are we detecting fake news at 99.5%? I don't think so.
No, we're not. So you're saying that it's still a long way to go when it comes to social media leaders to adopt such machine learning. I mean, it doesn't serve their agenda of engagement. You're saying from the very beginning, we said that they want to maximize the engagement. So do these machine learning algorithms that detect fake news go against their agenda of maximizing engagement?
It's not about going against their agenda of maximizing engagement. I think maybe a group of them thinks that way, but I think you can still get both. But I think we are limited by the way we are training and we are preparing our AI. Remember, at the end of the day, generative LLMs are trained on a certain data set. They lack the quality, so their writing or the text generated by GLLMs lack empathy. It lacks common sense, certain qualities that only the human brain, at this time at least, maybe in 50 years, this will be a different story, but we're talking about the foreseeable future, and currently the technology cannot provide text and at the same time detection like a human writer would do or a human fact checker would do. So a human fact checker would go into the profile of the person, would go in profile of the other person, would match the picture here and the picture there, the background here and the back there, and the likes here and the likes there, and the location here and the location there, and then draw certain reasonable conclusions. AI is not as far as that. As I said, currently most of the research that is being done to do detection is reducing the data set into features. And then how we test AI. We have the same data set, we use it for testing and training, or a different data set. But still, at the end of the day, those are data sets labeled by humans. So there is the error in labeling. That's one thing. And they are limited data sets. until the AI solutions are being deployed online to detect new text being generated later on, not text from their dataset.
Sure.
Until that is done, then we can know, or we can have, or we can say that we have developed a good AI detection tool. And of course, these AI detection tools, once they are used online by social media platforms, and as I said, according to my research, they're still doing that manually according to the criteria we just mentioned earlier, moderators and reporting and things like that. But then until they are deployed online and being refined, there will be mistakes, there will be misclassifications, and then there will be a continuous refinement process. So until we test it with real data, I don't think we have today an efficient detection system for fake news using AI. It is being developed. It is going to see the light soon, I hope. Part of the research of my students, I tell them, okay, we need to abandon testing and training and publishing. Okay, 95%. We need to deploy that in a real platform, whether a plugin for Facebook or a plugin for any social media network. And it gives a score or an indicator, or maybe color coding, red all the way to green. And then we let the users themselves continue the betting and maybe have some sort of a crowdsourcing where they can, okay, the orange ones, you as a user can sway it, whether it's red, fake, or green, and so on and so forth. So until we reach that level of AI plus human collaboration and vetting on real data, I don't think we have a final solution in the foreseeable future.
But that's what you just said gives us a glimpse of hope. And I like that you said that it's going to be a collaboration between humans and AI, which is the concept of human in the loop. Thank you so much, Dr. Munder. That was extremely enlightening. So with that, I would like to see you maybe in another 5-6 years to discuss the topic again, because I'm sure there will be lots of changes and development in the topic. Thank you so much, Dr. Munder.
Thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity, and best wishes for the podcast. I think you are tackling very important topics. I think this is going to be a very educational or enriching for our users. And hopefully this contributes more to the education of how to prevent fake news and the social responsibility of check the source, read the article, do a little bit of vetting, whether it's Google or fact checking before you share or click. So I hope we did our part, and the rest is on the listeners.
Thank you, Dr. Munder. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you.